Okay, so today I want to cover how to design a learning experience for a student, and this could be like a fun experiment. So the first step in any student experience is acquire the course or training. So that's the first step, either if it's free, paid, or given by someone. That's the first step of the journey. So after he gets the course, most likely he'll receive an email address. Receive an email with instructions on how to log in. So this is a step of friction in a way. This step could be eliminated depending on how he acquires the course. So maybe I go on a landing page, right? Then I go on a sales page. So I go on a landing page. Let's call it a checkout page. Now, here, depending on what system you use, let's put it like this. So there's the login, and then student is presented with a training. So this is like the normal course of actions. Dashboard. This is like the normal course of actions. So they acquire the course training, they receive an email instructions on how to log in. What we do, for example, in the sales engine is after someone checks out through the checkout page, we log them in automatically. So friction steps, which I will put in orange, which are these ones, can be eliminated by using the proper tools and sequence. So why do I say this? For in the checkout page, there is one thing that is the email address. That's the let's pick a color, blue, and let's put a process. So this is a background detail. So on the checkout page, after the account, the course is acquired. So those are the logical steps. Let's just put them like this. The way it kind of goes is an account needs to be created, right? So someone checks out. Now this, let's say I draw the full picture here. So is logged in. So is the user logged in? Let's say that the acquire tracking is there, and this is mostly on how the background things will pretty much go. If the user is not logged in, we'll use that. And if he is, everything gets simplified. Let's just call it user is flagged that he has access, because it's all about flags. And then it's there. Now, if he is not logged in, most likely an account needs to be created. And let's say this. Most likely the user will get there are multiple scenarios, but user is presented with a success message that instructs him to check his email address. So this one, let's say it waits both here, and let's say this one. I never tried this kind of lines before. I don't even know how to draw them. If I would try to split that one. Right. Now, in the whole flow, the thing will go a bit like this. So account needs to be created. Okay. Now this is fun part. When an account needs to be created, the main core piece is an email address. Depending on the systems that you use, there is a first name maybe available and a last name. Now, most systems have a username field, so we'll need to generate. Let's pick a different color. Let's say this is green and this is blue. Okay. So we might have these. Let's assume that this is what we get. It all depends on how the checkout flows. These might be optional. I don't even know what I'm doing, but these might be there. I need shade. I would love to have some shades of green. Okay, let's do. I think I'll need to make my own palette one day. But let's say that email address, this is there for sure. Like that's there. Like no checkout will happen without an email address. And first name and last name might be there. Those colors actually kill my eyes. So yeah, I think we go with this. So email address will be there. So this is what we have. This is something that we might have, but things that we don't have for sure are a username and a password. Now, in a checkout system, you could maybe put some fields to store and ask the person during the checkout to select the password, but it's better to just let's say that an account was created. So if a system asks users to come up with a password during checkout, that's not that good in the checkout, because you don't know how the connection is done, or if it's something that is done securely for the user. There are membership plugins out there, even famous ones, that store the passwords of the users in email marketing services as custom fields. This is very bad because they are stored in plain text usually. That means that the password can be easily visible by anyone who has access to the CRM. Let's suppose that those passwords are just stored in, this is techy, let's suppose that maybe they get stored in MD5 hash or SHA-1. That's still not that good, because usually when you build this type of platform, like a e-learning site, all the passwords should be hashed with a salt. So let me just cover that. So when a password is stored, let's say secret. Let's say that's the password, right? So let me show you. When that thing is stored as an, say, MD5, right? Let me see what. Okay, I resumed. So let's say that this password is hashed into MD5, right? It would generate this string. So this is about security, right? Now anytime I hash this secret key, right, the password, in this case the password is secret, anytime I hash the word secret, it will always give the same result. In security, what is recommended, so this is something like MD5 secret, right? Someone can have a database of all the words and passwords and reverse engineer the result to generate this password, because it's just raw MD5. I've done it years ago, and I can tell you it's a big issue. But if you add in something called a salt, WordPress does this out of the box, but still it's very important to know. If you add something called a salt element, now when I run this, the output would be slightly different. So if I run that with the salt is different for each site. The output thing will be different. So someone cannot just get a database of the internet of all the MD5 words. He would have to generate himself, if he knew your salt, a new entire database if he wants to crack the passwords in their raw form, right? In this case I use pretty descriptive salt. Oh. So this adds a huge extra layer of security. Now why did I mention this? Because it's very important. If you use the checkout system and that system had a password field and that password went raw format and it's visible to your eye in your email marketing system, you need to be aware that you're breaching some laws to some extent when it comes to the privacy of the user, because I don't want to go into how the passwords work, but it might be personal information, dates. Many people have password patterns that repeat themselves across different apps. For example, I have a password that is there on the dark web in a database that is leaked, and I still use it on any site when I need a quick login. It's like my junk password. But anytime my real passwords get, call it, compromised, I'm going to get really pissed. So the big thing and important thing is, please hash passwords, especially if you're building an e-learning platform, because let's assume you run a successful business and you have 1,000 students and you charge those people $100, $200, $500 their account passwords in raw format or hacked are much more valuable on the black market, because it's not random plebs, right? It's not random idiots. It's people that have money. If you're selling knowledge online, people buying it are not some kids that play Fortnite. Those passwords and email addresses are valuable, and you need to make sure that your students, customers, are protected. So don't use systems where this, by any chance, the passwords can get compromised. Okay, now let's go to the other thing, username. One flaw we did was to use the email address to generate the username and rely on just printing a username based on the email address. Since then, we've made some changes into our system, and we make a combination of first name, last name, and we try to automatically generate a unique username. And if first name, last name fails, then we add the following. So this, let's just use a plus. Let's put it like this. Let's say, so first name plus last name gives a username. Now with this plus, we can also have a random number. So part of the equation can also be a random number. And I will make an example. Let's say we have the following variables: John, Smith, right? So we have these, and we run them with a plus in order to generate a username, and the output would be John Smith. Now let's say that there is a username that is already called John Smith. We cannot generate it, so maybe we can just generate John. The first attempt in a username, we try to just take the first name. The lucky user gets that username. First user taking the first name, or last, depending on how you want to do it. Out of my head, I don't know if exactly how we do our rules right now, because I've done the system a while back. Well, let's say John Smith, and if after these run out, then we just go for John Smith 1, 2, 3. Here we can just take a random number from 1 to 1000 and just output it for the user. Let's assume that there is no first name. We take the email address. So these two are variables. The email address, in a way, let's take an example. Of an email address. robert@elearncommerce.com. This one could print Robert. And in my same system, I can just give this as a parameter and pretend that this is missing and there is no first name. So let's take it a go. So Robert is what's generated, and from Robert I can get Robert, plain and simple, or Robert 1, Robert 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. It's important to use a random generator because it adds a sense of kind of privacy, because if you just go with increments from 1 to 1000, you always know which user was the first. Now if you want that, sure, just do it, but I prefer, when I implement this kind of things, to put the element of randomness in there and just show the random digits after. So that's there. Now, of course, you can allow the user to change his username if you want, but usually people don't care, only if it's social platforms and they want to go by their alias, and depending on what type of website you're running. And depending on your checkout system, you might want them to put in their username. For example, in the sales engine, before we take people to the per se checkout page, we require them to register an account and we have them logged in directly. So after the purchase, we can avoid the need to send an email with instructions, log in. We just redirect them to a loader that shows for a few seconds, maybe a minute under very odd circumstances, and they get to their training directly or their welcome message or welcome page. So this is just talking about one of the pieces in the flow when you're creating a platform, which is how do you handle the onboarding and what are some important things to take into account when you're creating a system to not store raw passwords into marketing databases. This is a practice that is frequented by so many people, and it's horrible, and it needs to go away. Even if the password is randomly generated, it's a horrible idea, and there are systems that actually connect to the email marketing services and check when someone logs in if the password there matches the password someone entered before they get logged in. Horrible. What if that email marketing service has some issues with their API, or you want to change it? You're just making yourself dependent on it, even for something as simple as logging in. Email marketing service or CRM tool, in a way, they're the same thing nowadays. So yeah, that's just a few things about the customer onboarding account perspective. Have a great one.